Walk into almost any shop on earth and you can buy a bottle of water. Nothing unusual about that. But stop and look at what's actually happening in that transaction, because it is genuinely one of the strangest deals human beings have ever agreed to. You are paying money, sometimes real money, ounce for ounce more than you'd pay for gasoline, for a substance that falls out of the sky for free, fills the oceans, makes up most of your own body, and comes gushing out of a tap in your kitchen for a fraction of a penny. Somehow, this stuff, the single most ordinary and abundant material in your entire life, has been turned into a business worth hundreds of billions of dollars a year. So the question I want to answer is simple. How on earth did anyone convince the human race to pay a premium for water? Because the answer is a 500-year story of faith, fear, disease, marketing genius, and one of the boldest confidence tricks in the history of selling things. Let's go back to the beginning, and the beginning is not a factory, it's a spring. For as far back as we have records, people believed that certain water was special. Not all water, specific water, bubbling up out of specific places in the ground. A spring that ran cold and clear from deep inside the earth felt like a gift, and often like magic. If you drank from it and your aching joints felt better, or your stomach settled, word spread. Whole religions grew up around sacred wells and holy springs. And by the time of the Romans, this had become an entire way of life. The Romans built elaborate bathhouses around mineral springs and treated the water as medicine, soaking in it, drinking it, traveling for it. There's a town in what is now Belgium, famous since Roman times for its healing springs, and its name was Spa. That is literally where the word comes from. When you book a spa day today, you are echoing a 2,000-year-old belief that the right water can fix what's wrong with you. That belief never really went away, and by the 1700s and 1800s it had become a craze among the wealthy of Europe, an activity they politely called taking the waters. You would travel to a fashionable spring town in England, in France, in Germany, and you would drink glass after glass of the local mineral water, bathe in it, and generally treat the whole visit as a cure for whatever ailed you. In England, the spring water from the Malvern Hills built a reputation for exceptional purity, so clean and clear that people prized it above almost any other. Queen Victoria herself was devoted to Malvern water. And here is the pivotal moment in our whole story, the small idea that changed everything. Somebody looked at all these rich people traveling hundreds of miles to drink from a special spring and thought, why make them come to the water? Why not put the water in a bottle and take it to them? Bottle the magic. Sell it. That single thought is the seed of the entire bottled water industry. In England, they were selling bottled Malvern water as far back as the 1600s. Across the Atlantic, the first commercially bottled water in America went on sale in 1767 from a mineral spring near Boston. And every one of these early products was sold on exactly the same promise. Not refreshment. Not convenience. Health. This was medicine you drank. Take the origin story of Evian, one of the biggest water brands on the planet. As the legend goes, back around the time of the French Revolution, French noblemen with kidney problems started drinking from a particular spring in the town of Evian, on the shore of Lake Geneva, and became convinced it had cured his ailment. Doctors began prescribing the water. A spa was built. A business was born. And notice the pattern, because it repeats forever. A spring, a sick person who felt better, a story, and then a bottle with a price on it. As a fun little side note, look at the name Evian spelled backwards. It spells naive. Keep that in your back pocket for later. Now the story splits into two branches, and the second branch is where things get chemical. Because if the magic was in the bubbles and the minerals, some clever people started wondering whether they could just manufacture that magic instead of hunting for it in the ground. In the 1760s, an English scientist named Joseph Priestley figured out how to infuse ordinary water with carbon dioxide, giving it that lively fizz, essentially inventing artificial sparkling water in his lab. A little later, a jeweler and watchmaker named Johann Jacob Schweppe worked out how to do this on a commercial scale, and founded a company to sell manufactured mineral water to people who wanted the healthful fizzy stuff without traveling to a spa. You already know that company. It's Schweppe's, and it's still on shelves today. Sit with that for a second, because it's important. The entire global soft drink industry, all of it, was born as an imitation of healthy spring water. Fizzy drinks started life as fake medicine. And the most famous fizzy water of all pulled off the ultimate version of this trick. In the south of France, there's a naturally bubbling spring that the Romans supposedly used, with a legend that even Hannibal rested his army there. In the early 1900s, an Englishman bought that spring, and after a car accident he'd taken up exercising with weighted clubs shaped a bit like bowling pins. He decided to shape the water's bottle to look like those clubs, which is why, to this day, a Perrier bottle has that distinctive rounded, tapering shape. He gave it a French name and sold it to the British upper class as, and I love this phrase, the champagne of table waters. Water sold like champagne. The pitch had officially left the world of medicine and entered the world of pure status. But I've been dancing around the one era where bottled water wasn't a vanity or a health fad at all, where it was deadly serious. And this is the part that makes the modern industry so ironic, because for most of the 1800s, in the crowded, filthy, fast-growing cities of the world, ordinary water could kill you. Sewage leaked into wells. Rivers that people drank from were also open sewers. And the result was cholera, a horrific disease that could take a healthy person from their first symptom to dead in a day, spreading in terrifying waves that killed by the tens of thousands. Nobody understood why. Most doctors blamed bad air. Then, during a savage cholera outbreak in London in 1854, a physician named John Snow did something revolutionary. He mapped the deaths, street by street, and realized they all clustered around a single public water pump on Broad Street. He had the handle removed from that pump so no one could draw water from it, and the outbreak in that area died down. It was one of the founding moments of modern public health, and the lesson burned itself into the public mind. Water could betray you. Water could be poison. And so bottled water from a clean, distant spring stopped being a luxury for the rich and briefly became something close to a lifeline. If the water in your neighborhood might be swimming with death, a sealed bottle of something pure was worth paying for. And then, having reached the peak of its usefulness, the bottled water industry very nearly killed itself, by accident, through the triumph of its own logic. Because cities finally learned how to make water safe. Engineers built vast filtration systems that strained water through sand. And in the early 1900s, treatment plants began adding tiny amounts of chlorine to the public water supply, which slaughtered the bacteria that caused cholera and typhoid. It was, quietly, one of the greatest life-saving achievements in all of human history. Clean, safe drinking water delivered to your home for essentially free. And that near miracle should have been the end of our story. Because once the water flowing from every tap was clean and safe and practically free, what possible reason could anyone have to pay for water in a bottle? For a good chunk of the 20th century, that was exactly the consensus. In the wealthy world, bottled water became a sleepy little niche, a throwback, something your grandmother might order. Selling water to people who had perfectly good water at home seemed like a business with no future. And it almost was. Now, before we get to the resurrection, and it is a genuinely astonishing resurrection, one quick aside. If you enjoy watching an everyday object turn out to be a magic trick with a price tag, this channel does that on repeat. So hit subscribe and stick with me for the part where a soft drink company tries to sell an entire country its own tap water. Because here is how bottled water came back from the dead. It stopped selling water. In 1977, the French brand Perrier launched a massive advertising campaign in the United States, and the people behind it understood something brilliant. They could not sell American safety because American tap water was already safe. They could not really sell health, not honestly. So instead, they sold an image. They positioned Perrier as sophisticated, European, slim, chic, the drink of the fashionable and the fit, arriving at the perfect moment, just as a huge fitness and jogging boom was sweeping the country and people wanted to be seen making healthy, elegant choices. The ads were slick and stylish, and even voiced by the legendary Orson Welles. And it worked beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Perrier went from selling a few million bottles a year in America to selling hundreds of millions. A green glass bottle of fizzy water became a status symbol you set on the table so other people could see it. And every other water company on the planet took the lesson to heart. The product was never really the water. The product was how the water made you look and feel about yourself. Evian, Fiji, San Pellegrino, all of them selling not hydration but identity. Purity, nature, wellness, luxury, all poured into a bottle and sold to people who already had clean water 20 feet away in the kitchen. And once you understand that the water is almost beside the point, the industry's dirtiest little secret stops being surprising and starts being kind of hilarious. Because two of the best-selling bottled waters in the United States, Aquafina, owned by Pepsi, and Dasani, owned by Coca-Cola, are not spring water at all. They are tap water. Municipal tap water, the same stuff from the public supply, run through a filter, bottled up, branded, and sold back to you for hundreds of times what it cost. That is the entire business. Buy water for almost nothing, put it in plastic, sell it for a fortune. For years, the companies were quiet about this, until public pressure forced them to admit on the label that the source was, in polite corporate language, a public water source. Nowhere did this blow up more spectacularly than in Britain in 2004, when Coca-Cola decided to launch Dasani in the United Kingdom. British newspapers quickly dug up where the water actually came from. It was tap water from the town of Sidcup, an unglamorous suburb of London. Coke was purifying ordinary municipal tap water and selling it for around 95 pence a bottle. Water that cost roughly 3 pence to draw straight from the faucet, a markup of well over 3,000%. The British press went into a feeding frenzy, and they had the perfect weapon, because it echoed a famous episode of a beloved British sitcom in which a couple of hustlers bottle up ordinary tap water and try to pass it off as fancy spring water they call Peckham Spring. Real life had turned into the joke. And then it got worse. Testing found that a batch of Dasani contained bromate, a chemical linked to cancer, at levels above the legal limit, an unfortunate side effect of Coke's own purification process. Coca-Cola had to recall around 500,000 bottles and yank the entire brand out of the country. To this day, you cannot buy Dasani in Britain. A company famous for marketing had managed to get caught selling a nation its own tap water, and then accidentally contaminated it on the way out the door. Even the aristocrats of the industry weren't safe from having their halo cracked. Perrier, the brand that started the whole modern boom, the one whose entire identity was built on the word pure, suffered its own disaster in 1990, when laboratories found traces of benzene, another carcinogen, in the bottles. Perrier recalled around 160 million bottles worldwide. For a brand that sold nothing but purity, it was a catastrophe, and the company never fully recovered its old dominance. The lesson kept repeating over and over. The promise on the label is purity and nature and health, but what's actually in the bottle is often more complicated, more industrial, and much closer to what's already in your kitchen than anyone wants to admit. So where does all of this leave us today? In a genuinely bizarre place. Bottled water is now so normal, so completely woven into modern life, that in the United States people now drink more of it than they drink soda. What began as sleepy niche has become a titan, a global industry worth well over $200 billion, all of it built on convincing comfortable people to buy the one thing that nature and their own governments already hand them for almost nothing. And there is a real cost hiding behind the convenience. Those billions of plastic bottles pile up in landfills and wash into oceans, taking centuries to break down. Producing and shipping water in plastic burns through staggering amounts of energy to move around a substance that already flows for free through pipes beneath our feet. But, and this matters, I don't want to leave you thinking bottled water is nothing but a scam for the gullible, because that's only true from a certain seat. For a huge share of the human race, packaged drinking water is not a lifestyle accessory or a status symbol. It is survival. Billions of people live in places where the tap water genuinely isn't safe, or where there's no reliable tap at all. And for them, a sealed bottle or a sealed pouch of clean water is exactly what it was for a Londoner in 1854, protection against disease that could kill you. So the very same product manages to be two completely opposite things at once. In one country, it's a vain little indulgence sold on an image, and a few hundred miles away, it's a matter of life and death. Same bottle. Totally different meaning, depending entirely on where you happen to be standing when you unscrew the cap. And there's one final twist, a fittingly modern one. For 5 centuries, this product was sold on a single word, purity. Purer than your tap, purer than nature, the cleanest water money can buy. Then, in 2024, scientists at Columbia University developed a new way to count the plastic hiding in bottled water, and what they found was jaw-dropping. A single liter of bottled water contained, on average, around 240,000 tiny fragments of plastic, most of them nanoplastics so small they can slip through your gut and into your bloodstream, 10 to 100 times more than anyone had previously measured. Much of it likely shedding from the plastic bottle itself. So the great irony arrives, fully formed. The product that conquered the world by promising to be purer than the tap now comes preloaded with hundreds of thousands of specks of plastic per liter, courtesy of the very bottle it's sold in. Which brings us all the way back to that strange transaction in the shop, and I think the answer is finally clear. Nobody ever actually sold us water. They sold us fear when the wells were poisoned, and they sold us status once the taps were safe. And they sold us an image of health and nature. and a better version of ourselves, and we bought all of it by the billions of bottles. The most abundant substance on the planet became a fortune not because anyone made the water better, but because they got very, very good at making us feel something every time we reached for it. Free from the sky, nearly free from the tap, and one of the great businesses of the modern world. That's not a story about water at all, it's a story about us.